Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. And welcome back. And it's a very nice moment for me because I can give the word now to my co-president, Joe Matthews, and he will introduce him a little bit himself, and he will take the chair now and do this afternoon, and you will get a lot of information from him. So Joe, please.
It's very good to be with you. It's an honor to be here in Tunis and Tunisia. We're going to have in this next panel a very fast tour of the world, and I promise you, you won't even have to argue with anyone from Lufthansa. We will get all the way through it very quickly. I have been asked to make a few public and schedule announcements, actually more than a few. It's just a change in schedule, and we're being very flexible. Right after this panel, that's when we will vote. Then we will go to the panel on decentralization, and then I'm told that half an hour after that final panel, the panel on decentralization, buses will depart for those who are taking the buses back to hotels. So that's important to know. I'm also instructed to tell you, for those taking the buses here from the hotels tomorrow morning, that the buses will leave at 7:30. We have the workshops that begin at 9 a.m. tomorrow. The workshops do involve some work. There is the goal of a work product of this forum, a sort of a Tunis declaration. So try to take notes. Make sure someone in each workshop is taking notes on some of the findings and understandings you reach in the course of your conversations over Friday. And again, we're in workshops Saturday morning. On the Saturday schedule, I have been asked to mention that Democracy International, a very important background supporter of this process and this forum, is having its annual meeting in the afternoon on Saturday. All are invited. You come and join, become a member of Democracy International. We are eager to have you. I am a board member. And then to let you all know that after that meeting, and I think some other breakout meetings, perhaps on Saturday afternoon, we will have bus from there to a dinner and cultural event that evening. So that gives you a sense of the forum. We're now, with me in charge, I'm a journalist in Los Angeles. We are into the, since I'm from Hollywood, we are into the sexier and less substantive part of the day. And I want to introduce people here who are going to give us this sort of tour of most of the continents. And I think we will start with, I asked them to do this in 5 minutes, a continent and its direct democracy outlook in 5 minutes. Very easy. So South America, a continent of merely 400 million people and 18 million square kilometers, is Rafael Pinheiro, who is a professor of political science at the Catholic University of Uruguay in Montevideo, president of the Uruguayan Association of Political Scientists, and most importantly, led the 2012 Global Forum and is here to tell the tale. So, South America.
Thank you, Matthias. Well, I write some ideas. First, South America is a very heterogeneous region. Therefore, it's very difficult to talk about direct democracy in South America, taking this region as a unit. I will try to do an effort to do that. Nevertheless, this heterogeneous region has something in common regarding the political ambience. During the last 15 years, every country has suffered important political transformations that have boosted political participation of previously excluded citizens. In different ways, direct democracy, referendums, initiatives, and other instruments of direct participation were part of these political changes. Referendum initiatives are far from being the rule in Latin America, but its use has increased since the 80s, where most of the countries in the region recovered democracy. as in other regions where democracy is still fragile. Sometimes these instruments are promoted by citizens and organizations from the bottom, as in Uruguay, but many times are initiated from governments from the top. While bottom-up processes are usually strengthen citizens' capacity to interact with governments, top-down processes are usually the tools of governments used to improve legitimacy when they are being questioned because of their controversial policies or due to their undemocratic way to act. Recall referendums, in principle, a bottom-up process, tend to be used, like in the case of Venezuela, Bolivia, and recently in 2013 in Lima against its mayor, by parties in the opposition as a tool to oust governments. Obviously, this kind of direct democracy used by governments or parties in the opposition prevents the democratic process, and is not necessarily related with the capacity of the people to self-governance. Every country in the region has some direct democracy mechanism in their legal framework at national or at subnational level. However, many of these instruments that have been set in the constitutions of the countries haven't ever been used. The direct democracy mechanism in the region vary in terms of its level, can be held at national or at local level, but they also vary in terms of its degree of institutionalization. Many referenda or other processes were held without norms that support it. They are usually initiatives of civil society to impact in government agenda, but they are also, as I already said, government's initiatives looking for support to some controversial policy decisions. Let me talk briefly about other important tools that are being developed in the region. Participatory budget and neighbor councils at local level have improved the possibilities of people to define many policies at local level that has a high impact on their lives. Other instruments, as public consultations, have given voice to many social interests in highly conflicted topics, such as natural resources exploitations. South American experience shows that direct democracy mechanisms many times, as in the case of TIPNIS in Bolivia, cannot solve conflicts. Moreover, at times direct democracy amplifies conflicts, as it gives the opportunity to have voice to groups previously excluded. Direct democracy reduces the cost of citizens. That is what we see in Latin America, to take their interest and ideas to the political arena. However, direct democracy, as representative democracy, needs organized citizens. In an unequal region as Latin America, the capacity of collective action or organization of people is not equally distributed between groups. In this regard, one important challenge to make direct democracy work depends on the improvement in the capacity of collective action of the citizen, in particular the capacity of those who have less resources. Working in favor of direct democracy is not just a matter of changing laws in Latin America that give citizens the opportunity to launch initiatives and referendums. It's mainly a matter of helping collective action of the citizens. Representative democracy has serious legitimacy problems in Latin America, as in other countries in the world. Political parties suffer from a bad reputation. In this new era, where Latin American citizens demand a more active role in politics for themselves, direct democracy are important tools to channel political participation. The challenge is improving both direct and representative democracy to improve citizen capacity to promote their interests to the political arena, that is the same as saying to deepen democratic expression and solution of conflicts.
Thank you very much, Rafael. So let's, South America is a piece of cake compared to Asia, which Jung-Ok is going to take on, a mere 4.4 billion people and 44 million square kilometers there. Jung-Ok, are you ready?
Almost.
And I should introduce you. Jung-Ok is a professor of sociology at the Catholic University of Daegu in Korea, and she, like me, who led San Francisco's forum in 2010, and Rafael, we are in the club that President Al-Assami and will join at the end of this forum, which is people who have survived hosting of Global Forum. There is life before and there is life after such an event.
Thank you, Joe, and everybody. I think it is for me, it is very historical to say about democracy in Tunisia. So, because I just...
Bruno, I need you one more time here.
Is it possible to take away a little bit of the lights here?
But how Bruno will help me? Yeah, because it will just...
She's having trouble just advancing the
So, because the computer is different, time is so limited, I just share our experience in whole Asia, especially focusing on Korea, about our journey to democratization. So it is our journey. You can see the people who are gathered for something to propose. But usually they are going to propose and they are going to be against some wrong decisions decided by representative body. So we want to try to create some kind of a new design for how to these kind of resistance democracies to be institutionalized through United States direct democracy model and the Switzerland direct democracy model. So in Asia, we try to organize IRA Asia institutions. And you can see many social movements in all over the Korea and also in Asia. We have started in 80s, so late 80s and 90s is a progression towards democratization. Where is this one? So recently, last weekend I visited Taiwan. So surprisingly they used the same yellow ribbon to show their the agenda to the people. So we use yellow ribbon has been our symbol. So in that sense, whole Asia, when they try to express their political agenda and when they try to be against it, we can share certain symbol together. So I thought Asia and the whole world are connected, interacted globalization process, and sometimes it's social movement and democratization. So Asian particularities is related with externally imposed globalization. So most of the new changes politically, socially, are externally imposed. So we are very busy to be against. So many of our social tasks has been come together. So the first agenda could not be solved, and the second agenda came. So accumulation of old remnants have our society been pragmatized. So some social sectors are more focused on the feudal remnants. Some social sectors are more focused on the nation building modernization process. How is the time? So I call our democracy as catch-up democracy. So we need many social movements, but we thought we are weak of democratic value, and rapid changes from resistance to participation. So, and also how can relate the politics, how can regulate the economy through politics. So 3 tasks come for us. So I will share many things. But I thought how to design the participatory governance system. So there are many petitions these days. We collected 5 million petitions, but it doesn't work. The representative body do not take our petitions, so we are now confronting how to redesign our political decision-making process. This is not only Korea, it is all over the Asia. So our task is to redesign our decision-making process from changing phases to institutionalization of initiatives and the referendum, and also how to redesign the governance system, also how to, for the participatory system to be successful, how to make a citizen, how to make an ordinary consumer, how to make an ordinary voter to be real citizens. So then need some kind of citizenship education, some learn by doing, or we need some specialized education hub. So that was my sharing. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Jung-Ok. Daniela Botsanova, who lives in Bulgaria, gets to cover Europe, and it's 740 million people and 10 million square kilometers in 5 minutes. She is the chair of the Bulgarian Association for the Promotion of Citizen Initiatives. She was very involved in organizing a local referenda against a big oil pipeline through the Black Sea. Co-chaired the Greens in Bulgaria. So.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, okay. Former chair of the Greens in Bulgaria. Daniela, it is all yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. السلام عليكم. يسعدني أن أكون في هذا المؤتمر. يسعدني أن أكون في عاصمة تونس. I will continue in English. Okay, my country, Bulgaria, is one of the latest arrivals in the European Union, which has now 28 members. And we are talking about also European, when we refer to European democracy, some people think it's about the European Union, and they're more or less right. So in the European Union, I can single out actually two major processes. One is less democracy, the decreasing of democracy, because in the times of the crisis, which started about 2008, financial, economical, and a deeper crisis of democracy, more and more the executive power dominated the political process, and these people are not elected and not accountable. You have read and heard about the Troika who is governing the European Union, and these people are not accountable to the European citizens. The accountable people are in the European Parliament, and European Parliament is not so, does not enjoy the same mandate, big mandate as national parliaments. So the other tendency that I can single out is a drive for more democracy. People want more democracy, especially in the times of the crisis. They became desperate for more democracy. People, you know, there was Occupy in Europe too. There was a lot of protesting. There is a drive for more self-government. And as a result, some democracies, for example, that used to be considered purely representative, and usually one of the favorite arguments of the opponents of direct democracy is, look at Great Britain, this is a purely representative democracy, they don't need, this is a good democracy, they don't need any referendum. And let's take a look at Great Britain these days. They just had these elections, and the winning party, actually, one of the things in their portfolio of promises that they gave in the pre-election campaign was that they're going to hold a referendum on their membership of the European Union, in and out referendum. And just they have just held another referendum on the independence of Scotland. And this used to be a purely representative democracy where even the parliament had their parliamentary sovereignty. So this is, I think this is important development, especially when the referendum of in Scotland could be compared, because they were close in time also, with the not at all free referendum in Ukraine, which happened under the pointed guns and the presence of the tanks and so on. But anyway, speaking about, of course, Europe is not an exception to the general crisis of representative government and party system. And in many countries, parties try to find indirect democracy because of this people's drive to have a say, more and more say in the things that matter for their life, to be makers, authors of their own life. That's why parties sort of give an ear to this, and sometimes especially they like to give to the people the hot potatoes, the hottest issues to be decided by the people, and this is usually top-down process. For example, Greece wanted to put to the referendum the financial troubles of the country, getting out of the Eurozone monetary union. In my country, for example, Bulgaria, we have Turkish ethnic minority, and the party representing this minority is getting stronger and stronger. So now the political elite, the rest of the parties, have decided to put an end to this disproportionate representation of small ethnic minority. Has half of the parliament in Bulgaria, so they decided to give us this obligatory voting in elections. But to be legitimate, they have to make it through a referendum. But now they have given us a very bad referendum law, and we cannot have a valid referendum because of very high requirements for turnout and so on. Now I have seen for the first time in my life 2 drafts submitted by parties in parliament to amend, to make more democratic the referendum law. Why? Because parties look at referendums, initiatives, and direct democracy in an instrumental way, because this serves their purpose to get the obligatory voting in elections, so that I'm even afraid that once we have obligatory voting, they will also multiply the subsidy per vote by many more voters, and they will get bigger subsidy, and I'm absolutely unhappy taxpayer in my country. I'll vote against obligatory voting. We see an increase of popularity of direct democracy initiative and referendum. Role in this has also maybe you've heard about the European Citizens Initiative. It's the first transnational instrument for, if not direct, sort of direct, indirect democracy agenda initiative to put on the agenda of the European Union some important issue that troubles, that excites the citizens of the European Union. And very important about this, that you can support it online. So new technology, this is a new development, not only in Europe, but I think according to the UN, Korea is the first in e-participation and e-government. Yes. Now new technology is also put to work for better participation of people. Some parliaments, the German parliament has an e-petition system, the British parliament has an e-petition system, and this European Citizens Initiative also can be supported online. Of course, the mechanism is far from perfect. Now there is an audit of this mechanism, and we, especially Democracy International, has waged a campaign, supported but also other cousin organizations, to make the mechanism workable, to use this window of opportunity, because after this 3-year period now it is being revised, the mechanism, by the European institutions, so that they introduce some facilitation of the procedure, and we can use it with a better impact, this mechanism. So I'm in a way desperate for democracy in Europe, in a way hopeful, and that's it. It's quite controversial.
Thank you. Okay, time is short. We'd actually had invitations and lined up both contributions from Africa and South Asia and North America. Those 3 people are actually not here, have not made it here. I'm going to very briefly take on North America in just a few minutes. I want to thank for a lot of this data and checking that everyone in this room should be aware of a site called the Democracy Navigator, which has been built over many years of work by the great Klaus Hoffman, who's in the back of the room, of this part of the room over here, and is a great person to meet and talk to the forum, collecting on how the process works in all the different countries of the world. It is a wonderful wealth of data for people doing comparative work, and I think it would be of great help to people in Tunisia as they wrestle with these questions. Now, North America, very briefly, 528 million people. Canada, the process is relatively weak and not much used there. Canada is Canada. They are trying to stay warm. We move south to the United States, where the story is of a very robust and rich process that seems to be somewhat in retreat and decline. Yes, it's very present. At the local level in 49 of the states, and about half of the states, there are initiatives, citizens initiatives, but we're seeing a decline in numbers, both on overall ballot questions. This last year in our 2014 elections, 158 statewide ballot questions, which was the fewest since 1988 in an even-numbered year in the United States. They covered a wide range of topics: abortion, criminal justice, education funding, gambling, guns, immigration, insurance, and guns. These are Americans. We're talking about the minimum wage, salaries of government officials, state courts, state government spending, lots about taxes, and a lot about voting itself. We also had the lowest number of citizens' initiatives to make ballots since 1974, so a year after I was born, almost literally of my lifetime. What is behind this decline? I see my friend Dane Waters in the front row, who has been working on these issues, I think, for most of my lifetime. And he has worked most recently with the Humane Society of the United States. The most successful users of this process in the United States have been people who work in the animal protection cause. And he would point to a number of dozens of measures to put new regulations and restrictions in the process around the country. Often the impact of such measures, well-intentioned and may have positive impacts, but they also tend to raise the cost of what is a very costly process in the United States. Very much part of our capitalistic system. In my state of California, it typically takes $3 million just to collect enough petitions to get on the ballot. So that is a bit of the context and the news. Further south, there is some development in Costa Rica, which has a process, and in Guatemala. But I think the story of direct democracy in North America, the best story, the most interesting story is, without a doubt, Mexico. And a big part of the story there, that's a place, this country has gone through great change, great growth of middle class, of universities, but also some very difficult times as well related to security. But a big story there is a series of reforms that include a new article of the Constitution, Article 35, which was amended in 2012 and gives every citizen the right to, quote, vote on ballot initiatives pertaining to matters of national consequence. The initiative was proposed by President Peña Nieto, but it's already been a headache for some of the other reforms and complicated some of the other reforms that he is pursuing in areas like oil, and there have been attempts to use it against him. So far, the attempts have, even when petitions have been gathered and qualified, they have not given full force. As recently as last week, a petition that gathered signatures to establish the terms used were dignified wage for workers, was thrown out by the Mexican Supreme Court as not complying with the Constitution. That is continues to be a big fight even as we speak. In Mexico, there's also the prospect of a great deal of dramatic change in the country, in part from a movement that comes from the disappearance of and certain deaths of 43 students in the state of Guerrero. So you hear often in Mexico about the 43. That is it for what I have to say for North America, and I think for this panel. So why don't you, I think we made the time, so join me in thanking them, and I think we will move to the vote. Do you need me to tell that story you wanted me to tell while we get ready for the vote, set up for the vote here? Yes. Okay. So this is a story that combines North America and Europe. Bruno asked me to tell the origin story of the Global Forum, who is ultimately responsible for the Global Forum now, and putting him and me together. And, and I would say, as I've said at previous forums, that if you have any complaints about the event, its structure and how we do this, I would suggest you write one Arnold Schwarzenegger. I have his address. It's 3110 Main Street, Santa Monica, California, 90403, care of Oak Productions. But I was a reporter covering him for the Los Angeles Times because California saw fit to elect a European governor, came in with high hopes and was by the end seen as ineffective and waffling. So no other European politicians have ended up that way, I'm sure. Bruno was a globe-trotting correspondent and direct democracy fellow, and we both found ourselves in Governor Schwarzenegger's office in Sacramento, California, on the first floor of the Capitol, and we were introduced. I thought Bruno at first was another one of the many strange German-speaking men, very tall and fit, who always seemed to go out of the governor's office in California at that time. But he was not one of those. And so anyway, are we ready for the vote? Excellent. Okay.